Ritchie DeCarlo, live from the Prius.
We had to do that.
Hey, man. Non-essential since 1967. We got our good friend, excellent drummer, Ritchie DeCarlo. This is Anthony. My name's Bobby. Welcome
How you guys
to
doing?
the Drum Circle,
Hello.
episode number 2.
Yeah, what more can we say? We have one of the top drummers on the East Coast right here, Ritchie, who's been doing it so long and such an interesting guy in so many different ways. Gotta love him. So, we're going to take some questions in a little bit. Ritchie's going to play. We have a lot of things to talk about today. And let's start with the Bucks County. Let's get right into it.
Oh,
Bucks
okay.
County
Bucks
drums
County
are
drums.
in the house.
Yes, this show is brought to you by Bucks County Drum Company. And I went to Chris Carr is the owner. I think he does everything himself right now. I don't think he has any employees. Amazing setup. I went to his place a couple days ago. We are borrowing this drum set for the show. He lent it to us because mine's being custom made. We've been talking since the Delaware Drum Show. So what's that? 3-4 months?
Yeah,
now?
November.
End of February.
February,
right?
yeah.
So we started talking then about me getting on board. So I'm going to be I'm very happy to be a Bucks County Drum Company artist, and that'll start as soon as my drums are done, probably another month or two. And we'll be playing these in a couple minutes. And like I said, he's a one-man operation. He does everything himself. He's not, he's taking the wood, big things of wood, wetting them and rolling them and doing all kinds of things. I was very impressed with his setup, and I know you'll be impressed with the drums. I've been playing them last couple days, actually, if you've been looking at my whatever you call it, the story on Facebook.
The first thing about it is that first thing is Chris. I mean, if you've never had a chance to meet Chris, he's an excellent guy, very knowledgeable about the instrument, knows a lot of facets of the drum. He's not just the guy putting screws into a drum. This guy's designing woods. He's building the shells. He's not ordering shells. He's literally plying the shells and he's mashing up different woods, and he's just really understands the instrument a lot, understands what makes a drum sound good, and he's building fantastic products. I mean, they're great.
I don't think I've ever heard a bad set, honestly.
Yeah. Good
No,
stuff.
I've played a few. No, and he really knows wood, which I think is really important. Like I said, I play like this. He saw a couple of my videos. I want this high end, low end there. I was, you want ash there, and you want this there, or you want walnut or whatever. And I was like, whoa, all right, cool. So, you really want to get in touch with him if you're.
What configuration did you go with?
My set's going to be ash, all ash, 6-ply drums, 6-ply hoops, 22. Well, it's actually 2 kits in my world, but it's if you had everything set up, it's 22, 8, 10, 13, 15, and the 18's a bass drum that'll be on its side if it's a floor tom. So little gig, 18-inch kick, 10-inch tom, 13-inch tom. It's a little kick.
Nice.
And then big kit. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I love that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah, and then if I want to have big kit, I have that.
You got it. Yeah.
And they're the same color. As
So
you go
now
to
the 18 is that'll have like legs, and it'll also mount like a bass drum, or
either way, yeah, and it'll have hoops like a bass drum.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, so that's
But
gonna
it'll
be-
have floor tom legs, so you can
Floor
mount it
tom
on the
legs,
side. But then
yes.
it'll have legs that you can mount it
in the
like-
floor tom brackets.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so that's gonna
I
be
like
cool.
that. So it'll be, I guess, when he's measuring that out, he's got to kind of, it's normally in a triangle type if you think of it like that. But yeah, it'll be pretty cool actually.
I love his badges. I think
Yeah,
The logo's great.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's one thing that I always
And
thought
he's
stood
actually
out.
working on last time that we spoke, which was the Delaware Drum Show. He's working on a patent on trying to get his own lug design.
Yeah, it's funny because I want the beaver tails, which is what these are, and I have 4 other kits with beaver tails. So
Yeah, Beaver Tail's nice. It's
I
old,
love 'em.
Old school, man. They're different
Radio
looking
King.
lugs, and in fact, my tattoo has beaver lugs on it.
Nice.
That's Sling of the Radio King, baby.
nice.
And we're here right at Ritchie's recording
what-
studio.
Yeah.
And gosh, if you saw his drum collection back here,
To TTS, is that?
TTR,
TTR,
is the name of the
sorry.
studio. I'm a partner. I'm not full owner. There's 4 of us here, and we do all kinds of things. And you see my videos. I do a lot of drums for other people here, and solos and stuff. But yeah, it's an amazing room. It sounds really good in this room, which you'll hear in a minute.
Big, high, yeah.
yeah, definitely a lot of drum sets, a lot of gear you have in here,
There's a
Ritchie.
lot
I
of
must
gear.
say, a lot of gear.
I geeked out over a few snare drums when I got here. I was like, You might want to check inventory
Just
when I
when
leave.
my
is what-
wife thinks I'm bad, and I know she might be watching.
You're way worse now.
Well,
I-
we
I
got to give
will
a
get
shout
pic-
out. We got to give a shout out to Andrew Owens. He owns most of the stuff here. Andrew Owens owns every Sonar drum ever made.
Is that?
and a lot of snares.
That's not Love Puppies. Then.
That's Love Puppies,
No
Andrew.
way. I haven't seen Andrew in so
Yeah,
long.
great
I love
player,
him,
yeah.
man. Holy
Yeah.
mackerel! I was talking to Rob Silver, man, who jammed with for a really in El Kabong. Or wait, was that might not even have been Andrew? I miss Andrew. He's a good dude. I didn't know that was Andrew.
Ask you a couple questions, and we'll get to the kit.
What is it?
Yeah.
Before we get to these questions, what is the configuration that we're going to be hearing today of this?
It's
You
all
know?
birch, 100%
Okay.
birch. It's a 5.5 by 14 inch snare. I think it's a 15 by 22. It's definitely 22. I don't know. I think it's 15 deep. 8 by 12, 14 by 16. And they sound great. I've been messing with them the last few days. The snare over here is a 12. It's maple. I actually had to buy that one. I was out there, so I own the snare drum. The one over
That's
here,
a
the
cool
12.
looking snare. I like
It's
it.
great. It
And
sounds
that's a
great.
Bucks County.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything we're
The
playing.
thing about this kit is like it's going to sound decent online, but not. It doesn't even really do it justice of what
True.
when you were playing it when we first got here and just checking out the sounds of it. It's sonically, it's just great. Kick drum, really, you could feel it. Like pant legs were shaking and
Oh, and this
good stuff.
drum's also his. It's his version of a Black Beauty. So it's black plated brass. I think that's a 6 by 14. That's
it
also
weighs
him.
about 400 pounds. No,
No,
Is it
no,
heavy?
that's a light
It's
one.
not
actually.
bad.
That's
It's
pretty light.
actually
Yeah.
normally
That's a
those
beautiful
drums are
drum.
A little
Yeah.
heavy. So, all right, well, let's get to some questions, Anthony. What do you got over there?
I mean, I wanted to ask maybe a couple questions. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then we'll get him on the
Yeah.
kit. And I mean, I know a lot of people know who you are, and you know, like who are your influences? Like when you were growing up, who were like some of the drummers that when you were a kid that you tried to say, I wanted to be him. I wanted to play like this. I wanted to, you know, because I notice you're into all kinds of stuff. Like you're not just into drums. You're
Correct.
into electronics. You're into stuff that I don't even know what it is.
Right. Most
but-
people don't.
But you know, like what got you? Like what were some of those drummers like that grabbed you as a child that you could go back that far and say, wow, these are my top drummers that influenced me to make me who you are today.
Well, there's a little story before I could answer that. So I'm very fortunate and pretty unique because my grandfather started me playing drums at the age of 5. Now, you know, as much as a 5-year-old could play drums. That's when he started me. I get behind his drums and I play. And my father and mother were always listening to music. They always had records on, whatever, anything from Stevie Wonder to Bad Company to Weather Report to, you know, Yes. And to me, at 5, 6, 7 years old, that was just music. It wasn't rock. It wasn't jazz. I kind of knew my grandfather had his own music, which was like big band era jazz. But to me, it was all music, which I'm so glad that happened. There was no like, I listen to rock music and not that. It wasn't that at all. It was all just on these records. So the first guys that I remember listening to, my grandfather was a Buddy Rich fanatic. So that album Mercy Mercy, the live record, I remember listening to that a lot. And I'm talking when I was really young, not even knowing what it was. I listened to that a lot. And then the stuff my father was listening to was like ELO. Bev Bevan was the drummer there. Major, major influence, which was weird because he was Ringo kind of for me. Yeah. He played a lot like Ringo, and like I went into Ringo backwards, like because the Beatles kind of sound like ELO, you know. I'm like this little kid, you know. So Ringo became an influence like backwards, and then Don Henley was a major influence back then because back then I needed to be able to play what they were doing. I mean, I couldn't play like Buddy Rich, but if you played like, I don't know, Billy Cobham or even John Bonham back then, it would have turned me off because I couldn't play along or grasp it. So it was all very basic guys, like Nigel Olsson with Elton John, still one of my all-time favorites. Major influence. It was always that, like that. I could do that. I had to have that first. And then it got to the point where, well, I can't do that. Why? And that was probably, like, I guess I was 10 or 11 when I started taking lessons. And so then came the big guys, you know, like Bill Bruford with Yes, Phil Collins with Genesis, Carl Palmer, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, not so much the Asia stuff, but the Emerson, Lake and Palmer
They
stuff.
were more your teen years.
No, I'm still like 12, 13. I'm really young still. I mean, it's weird when I look back. It's like I was able to play at like 13. because I've been playing like 6 or 7 years. Like, granted, I was in the basement. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had all this sort of, hours on the drum kit, and I'm 13. It was like, so it was weird. And then so there's that whole era, and then came another thing with Cobb.
Before you get too far into that, because I want to touch on a couple of things that you said there. I think it's really huge because, when you ask somebody their influences, they're always like, Bonham, Peart, and everything. But you're right. Like, it's like Phil Rudd is like one of my favorites because that was simple. I could play that.
Right.
When I was starting out playing rudiments. And other stuff and difficult stuff came, like the Peart and stuff like that.
Right.
But it starts out with that
Neil Peart
stuff,
would
and
have
it's like
scared the shit out of me at 5 or 6.
You get stuck on that.
I
when
wouldn't have
you're
wanted to
young.
hear that at all. You know what I mean? I would have turned. It probably would have turned me off. I'm glad that didn't come my way then.
Yeah,
I really
but it's like you just get overwhelmed. You're like,
right. And I never liked Kiss, and I'm saying this for a reason. It's a good reason. I never liked Kiss. However, I totally respect how many kids those 4 guys got playing. Peter Criss is responsible for probably 1 million drummers.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, and you were there. You know what I mean? I mean, like, Ace Frehley's my favorite guitar player. They got so many kids on board with music, and then they probably went into other avenues or whatever. I don't think everybody stayed a Kiss fan or whatever. I didn't. I just never got on board with them. But I think that's bigger than how good or bad anybody is. I think that level of influence. Somebody told me that. I don't remember the number, but when Ringo did the Ed Sullivan Show the first time, Ludwig couldn't fill the orders for drums. I don't know how many orders there were, but they got enough orders that week after the Ed Sullivan Show, kids watching Ringo, that they wanted his drums. Now, you know what I mean? You're talking a whole nother level of influence. Now, whether those guys kept playing or not, I don't know. But that's pretty heavy to me. That's as much as how good a guy is. If he could go on a show for 3 minutes and half the country wants to be him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Any one of those 4. I mean, I think that's big.
Well, I think it's just crazy how sometimes like you gravitate towards the flashy guys, and a lot of times when you started, you got influenced by the simpler guys because they were the guys you could relate to the best. Yeah. So I mean, I got my guys. I'm sure everybody. It's good to hear that though. It's like you didn't just jump to the, the guys who have the fills and go nuts. So, but you were talking about as you got in your teen years and
when I was about 15, we used to back in the day, kids, we used to trade records. You'd buy an album a week, I'd buy an album because they were, we didn't have money, and so you'd listen to the album and I listened to my album, and I'd say, hey man, you got to check out this Yes album. Oh well, I got this Rush album. Okay, let's trade for a few days. That's really how it broadened, because I could afford more than one album a week, or my parents wouldn't buy me more. So you had to really be picky. So somebody lent me an album called The Intermounting Flame by the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and it was Billy Cobham, and it was from the early 70s, and it doesn't even really sound good, that record. Like the recording quality's odd, but his playing, I swear to you, for a few days I thought, I can't do this. I had been playing for years at that point, and I was going to buy a guitar or something else, because I was like, if this is where this is going, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't really
the
think.
Mountain is like,
it's too much work.
I don't think I even. I mean, forget the work. I couldn't even comprehend. I could tap my foot. I mean, these guys would. It almost sounded like they were just making noise.
You're pricing
and
out
then you
harmonicas.
realize it went around again. Like that noise was the same noise again. You were like, wow, there's that. And then the Frank Zappa thing just took me by storm in 78 or 79 or whatever it was. And I have some visual aid now that you mentioned. Paul McCartney
Band on a Run
is one of my all-time favorite drummers. And most people don't know it. He's the drummer on this record. He played on this whole album. Amazing drummer.
And a lot of Beatles songs as well.
Yeah. I don't want to go there.
Oh boy, this could be another whole show.
And
wow,
then
he definitely
and
did
then
some people
and
know
then just
that.
another quick one. When this album came out, which I believe is 78, completely changed. This is Terry Bozzio, by the way. Terry Bozzio is the drummer on this whole record. And again, he almost knocked me off too. Like, if that's what I got to do. Yeah. But it really kept me on board because of the, I don't know, I guess.
What else you got there?
Zaniness. Jethro Tull, which was Barrymore Barlow.
Another great one.
Amazing drummer. The earlier guy was, I can't remember his name right now. Clem. I forget. Anyway, I don't have the first Robert Plant album on vinyl. This is the second one, but they both have Phil Collins on drums. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing albums.
Richie Blackmore, no?
No. The guitar player's name's Robbie Blunt.
No. He had a drummer on like Burning Down the One Side was.
Ritchie Hayward from Little
Hayward,
Feat.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't even think about him. He was a major influence.
And that record was.
Yeah.
Already see what's coming up next.
And then,
Rich. I know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's
This
I think
That's
that
huge for
record
me.
can speak for you.
this I don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
If you don't know this record, go get it. Queen, News of the World, and that's enough for now. We'll go to the other records later.
so that's a nice collection there.
but then-
on vinyl nonetheless.
Yeah, I still have
Which
most
is
of
killer.
them. I still listen to it.
So
But then
good.
just one more last thing about influence, and this is more my teacher coming out because I still teach a lot. I've been teaching 30 years or something. But what you don't think about with influence, like you're saying, you don't really think about the basic thing. That's where you really started. That's where you start thinking about the guys that really kick your ass. What you really don't think about is how much a drummer you don't like influences you. And I'll give you an example. The guy in REM, I just don't like. I never met him. I don't know him. I think his name's Bill Berry. But his playing, I don't like at all. So whenever I heard him do something, I made sure I never did it.
That's fun.
So that's a big influence. I mean, when somebody's making you go out of your way to not play like them, think about it.
Yeah.
That was in the 90s, I guess. I started to notice that because I would do something. I go, "Ooh, that kind of sounds like REM. I'll never do that again." You know what I mean? So you talk about the word influence, and then you get into that world. Well, I do. It's my students. I'm like, because I tell them, listen to stuff you don't like. Listen to it all. You don't have to go buy it or anything, but if something comes on, just take it in. If the people like it, take it in. Like it took me a while to take U2 in. When they hit, I didn't really get it. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then maybe 3 or 4 albums in, I was like, oh, wow, okay, I see what's happening there. And I'm not talking just drums. I'm talking the whole thing.
The whole thing.
I was just like, wow, okay, that works. So there's my influence answer.
Well,
Very
we're
long.
talking about influences, but I mean, what are your studying? Who have you studied with coming up? Like, have you studied with certain teachers or?
Yeah. The first guy I studied with was a guy named Lenny Tierno at Sam D'Amico's, which you've been. I don't know if you ever been there. Sam
I didn't know that
You
wasn't
were
really
there.
me.
That was a South Philly music store. Went out of business. He died a while ago. But Lenny Tierno was my first teacher. He taught me how to read. Then Jay Bruno, who probably taught half the local guys that are watching. I was with him for 3 years. He totally kicked my ass. Like basic. I mean, this is just straight.
Still around?
Nah. Well, he's in Puerto Rico now. I talked to him.
Okay.
I talked to him a few months ago.
Nice.
I thought I was hot shit. I was playing for a while. I don't know. I'm 14. Everybody 14 playing something. You think you're hot shit. You know your shit. So he goes, play something for me. First lesson. Just play. I don't know. I had maybe a Led Zeppelin song in my head or a Rush song or whatever, and I was ready to impress the shit out of him, right? And I play it all. And playing for like a minute. He goes, okay, stop. I'm like, what? He goes, that sucks. And I was like, that's the last thing I expected to hear, And I was like, what? He goes, that sucks. I hope you're not here to waste my time. So that was my introduction to Jay Bruno.
Dude,
and it was like, from there on out, it was like I did whatever he said.
Dude, I had with this Al Epry guy the same almost exact experience. When I got there, I was like, he talked to me about what kind of player are you, how long you've been playing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I do this and I do that. And he's like, well, play. And same thing, just like, yeah.
It was brutal. That was
I
brutal.
hope you're not bringing that stuff here.
Well, they bring other parts of your, your playing style, like a style that you wouldn't think that, he probably looked at you and said, okay, he wants to be this. I'll get him and try to bring this personality out of him, this personality out of him, and then Ritchie DeCarlo one day will be a little bit of everything, which, you got to give him props for that.
Oh, totally,
You know?
totally. But what you really noticed was how bad my left hand was.
Yeah, well,
at that
all
time.
of us growing up.
I know. You don't think about it.
My
'cause
left hand was awesome.
when you get
because you're left-handed.
How bad your right hand is. But no, it was great, and that's when I got all the rudiment stuff. Jay taught me all the rudiment stuff, got me all that snare drum stuff, and then I studied with Jim Chapin, who wrote the Independence book. I studied with him for 2 or 3 lessons. I mean, and that was enough for a lifetime, to be honest. And then I studied with Smitty Smith. You remember him?
Nice. He's
He was
great,
the
yeah.
drummer on
Yeah,
the
I
Tonight
love
Show. Yeah. I studied with him
I think we're all
at Drummers Collective for a
beat
few
ourselves
lessons.
up. Like, I still beat myself up on my left hand. If I go down, I'm like, I want to work on my left hand because it's always the weaker of the two. Whether it's doing drags or working on just moving around the kit, it's always going to be the weaker. It's always going to be the weaker one. It'll be your right.
Yeah.
You know, you
Well,
play right
Off camera, like before we started the show, we were talking for about a half hour about how, left hand leads and all that stuff, and doing the Zeppelin thing. I had to like kind of reteach myself and not let that be something that held me up.
Yeah.
So it's you work on it hard, and you've obviously developed that left hand, and it's come a long way.
Well, Ritchie will play left-handed.
Yeah.
He switches a lot. Which
Yeah,
is,
we were talking about the Simon Phillips thing with the open hand playing, and one thing that before we were on, we were just talking about some open hand play. We were talking about Billy Cobham and Simon, and Simon's really set his kid up in a way that he's made everything easier for him to be able to play how he wants to play. I mean, his hi-hat is like literally like this high above his snare drum because he likes having that connection to it, and the ride cymbals over here, and how he just approaches the whole thing is just for him. Wouldn't be comfortable for just about anybody else, but he took all those weakness. He doesn't have a weak side. He's just, I'll play this way, I'll play that way, and that's how everybody wants to be, man. Ambidextrous,
Yeah.
So
Anybody in your family play any instruments?
My grandfather.
That's it?
Yeah. And I always called my parents professional listeners because they always
I think
you
that's
know,
important,
they were
man.
always on top of stuff. But and it's funny is like all the stuff they were listening to. Like they were really into Boss Gags in the 70s and like Stevie Wonder and all this stuff. And again, like I told you, I never really thought about Boss Gags being any different than Bad Company or anything. It was all just music. And then years later, I find out, Boss Gags, the record I loved was Toto. It's them.
it's basically
With Boss Gags
yeah.
singing. So I'm like, oh, well, no wonder. It's like, these
I
guys
was
were,
listening to Toto on the way here, man.
Our poor parents, think about that. You're in South Philly, and your mom and dad are probably like, oh, I wish Ritchie was, why couldn't he just play the violin?
Oh, it's way worse than that. It was me, John Corabi, Jimmy Marciano, and a guy named Frank Semeka. We used to rehearse 3 days a week in my bedroom. Think about being that kid's parents.
What a lineup!
What-
I'm just thinking
It's a
about
great.
the
I know.
lineup.
I like
I'm
Corabi's.
I'm
Corabi's
still
one of my
stuck in
favorite
Corabi
singers.
Oh, and we were
Marciano,
playing all
like,
Corabi songs.
You
back
had
then.
me at Marciano and Corabi.
Yeah, but I mean, John, he's a screamer,
Yeah.
and so he's up there with the PA screaming his ass off. I'm pounding away, I was like 15
That's
or
awesome.
16. So, I mean, you talk about that. like,
Talk about a band, though. I mean, like,
Did
you ever
these
record
are
any
all
of that stuff?
teenagers
Like
and
cassette
there's
tapes?
4 songs somewhere. I think Jimmy has them. There's only 4
Cool to hear
songs
that.
That would be
recorded.
cool
Yeah,
to
it's
hear.
great stuff.
wow.
It's great. And here's this will be a funny thing probably for the viewers. There's a song on there that sounds just like Livewire from the first Motley Crue record. It sounds just like it, but it's 2 years before Motley Crue even ever existed. And then John ended up in Motley Crue. So
Wow.
how weird is that? Like he wrote Livewire before they did. I
Wow.
mean, no connection there at all. But how
Yeah,
weird
right.
is that?
That's crazy.
Bizarre.
I think the connection with the parents thing is crazy though, because same thing for me. My dad was like a DJ, and after dinner he always spun 45s in the living room. That was where after
cool.
dinner time was in the living room, and he'd just be flipping through it and put this one on that turntable, and then by the time that song was over, he'd find another one here. But like I always talk about songs, like when I'm playing, I'll be like, like American Band. Like that song to me was my dad playing the gold record with the fist on it. I didn't even know what it was. I was probably like 6, 7 years old, and I'm like, I don't care. Play that. And that was like what hooked me right then. But that
And Don Brewer was kicking ass before
and
anybody.
singing.
And singing. But I mean, his drumming, you talk about heavy
Incredible.
hitters and everything. I mean, he was way ahead of everybody.
And his showmanship, like
Yeah.
just real lot of energy
Yeah.
and stuff. And that big afro was like, but I mean, just with
I had
that
an
whole.
afro.
You did actually.
It's in the car.
And the funny thing is, I think of Don Brewer when I look at those pictures.
I had a.
You had it.
Yeah.
You had the Don Brewer afro.
Yeah.
That was it. But it's crazy how. And then my parents were just like anything but drums. Play guitar, play anything but drums. And then finally I broke enough stuff in their house that they're like, buy the kid a drum set. So he starts breaking my stuff. So, but it's crazy with the parents in the musical. Even if they didn't play, that's what
Right.
got you into listening to this stuff and kind of molded you that way. And sweet. Hey, if you guys got a question out there and you guys want to ask it, Anthony's going to be looking at the feed. We'll try to ask Ritchie a couple questions throughout the show that you guys want to hear.
How about I play something while you're waiting on questions? How's that? Does that work?
That works for me.
Yeah,
All
man.
right. Just put that mic straight up.
Yeah.
You have your ear protection, Anthony?
I have to. My ears anymore. It's like I asked Ritchie Bob before you got here. I said, "Do you wear any ear protection at all?" And he said, "Nope." And I was like, "Okay," because ears are you only get one set. They do. Bucks County drums and Ritchie DeCarlo playing them. Sounded great. Drums sound good. I always like the way they sound out here better than when I'm always sitting out there or in there. Let's see here.
Yeah, the kick drum too, man, is, really has a great tone.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Birch. They definitely.
I like Birch too. I think the coolest thing about what he's doing over there is the mixing of species of woods. Is he's kind of really done some pretty cool exotic mashups that sound killer. Have you thought about, like, are you just doing all 45s on your kit, or are you switching up the bearing edges for?
I'm letting him do whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes I like mixing up bearing edges because
I don't think those are 45s. They don't. They seem like they're less. It seems like there's more wood touching the head.
Yeah, a lot of times what they're doing today is they're doing like a 45, but they're like really hand sanding over the 45, so it's a little bit more round on the top.
That's what they seem like. They
Yeah,
seem like older drums.
That's kind of more of a more modern spin-off on that 45. Like a lot of times they're not doing a direct point anymore. That's just kind of like filed down. But like on kick drums, sometimes when you have a full round over like a 30 degrees, like really gives you a lot more depth out of the bass drum, and sometimes not only the wood, but sometimes mixing with the heads and the bearing edge is going to really change the sound of the drum.
Rich, we do have some questions. Joe Albright, ask Ritchie if he has any favorite snare drums or drum kits he used over the years.
Well, my favorite snare drum is behind me.
Go grab it. Go grab it.
That little piccolo guy?
It's a 4x14. It's not really a piccolo.
Okay.
And these snare drums are my favorite. I have 3 of them. I have one. This is an 8-lug 4-inch. This one's from around 1930. It's a Ludwig brass. And then I have a 5-inch with 10 lugs. That's earlier, like 1926 or something.
Wow.
And then I have another 5-inch. That's 8-lug. And they're so that's my favorite snare drum. There's only one drum set that I regret selling. I guess that's a good way to answer this question. I had a Pearl Masterworks set made for me.
Yeah, I remember that kit.
Like 20 years ago. And that was a it was weird. It was 2 plies of birch, 2 plies of mahogany, and maple re-rings in it. And yeah, I just that was probably my favorite.
What color was that kit? It was like a.
It burst. It went from
it was a
natural to.
yeah,
I think
right,
they called
exactly.
it burnt toast.
Yeah, it was like a burnt to a brown, right?
Yeah,
Like a tobacco.
it was
almost.
amazing. I
Yeah,
shouldn't have
kit was
saw it.
great.
Yeah,
You had a lot of drums with that kit too,
yeah,
right? That was
10, 12, 13, 15,
2 kicks,
18.
different sizes.
2 kicks,
yeah.
20, 22.
Right.
Yeah,
That was, like,
so that was
one
probably
of
my
them.
favorite drum set of all time. I miss it. But I have some great kits now. I have the Tempest kits, carbon fiber. You could research carbon fiber. I'm not going to get into that. And a maple kit made by SJC. They're great. I use all these Sonar drums that are here. They're not mine, but I
But
use
your new
use them all.
favorite kit is on its way.
Hopefully, yeah. That's going to be Ash, and
It's going to have to be up
and
there.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, that'll get the Pearl set off my mind.
You know, one thing too is these the XSR right here, these Sabians here. What a great little affordable cymbal that is.
Yeah, and they work with.
I
Just
got a
about
whole
anything.
set of them. I got a set of them. I love them a lot. They're so good. If you're looking and you can't spend a ton of money on cymbals, but you still want to get something good, these are kind of not low, not high, but they sound high end to me.
They
so
do to
check
me
them
too.
out.
Yeah. And there's Zildjian hi-hats, and that's a Larry London ride. I have 4 of those. And that's a Dream something. What do they call it? Dream Bliss? The Pang.
Did you get that from Mike Giuliano?
Of course. I got the
course.
savings from him, too.
Mike Giuliano.
Yes.
Gotta say hi to Mike Giuliano. Rich, what advice would you give other drummers today starting out? Like if someone was starting out as a kid, what advice would you give them as far as like not to do, to do kind of vibe?
Well, I mean, as far as students go, I try to get them on the set as much as possible. I mean, I don't say you got to play hours and hours and hours and hours, which is what I did, and nobody made me do that. I used to play for hours a day just because I wanted to. But my first thing is, if you're going to play, I mean, years ago I would say get a teacher, but now you can learn just about everything you need to get started on YouTube. You can find just about any basic thing. You could probably fix your sync on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy.
So true. I look at YouTube now.
Yeah, so you get on.
Still get. I mean,
I do too.
I want to look at some gospel linear crazy lick. I'm like, ooh.
So I would say play every day, even if it's 10 minutes. Just play every day. Don't play 4 hours on Sunday. Play every day. Play 15 minutes, half hour, whatever you could do. And then what I would tell them not to do, which we talked about earlier, is I would tell them to not be right-handed or left-handed in their head.
Yeah.
Try to get that out of your head. Of course, you're going to eat with your right hand or left hand, whatever. You do all the same things you do, whatever. But when you get behind that set of drums, play the hi-hat there where your left hand is. Play that drum over there with your right hand. Don't try. It's hard. It's really hard, especially if you weren't like that at the beginning. But that would be what I would tell anybody starting out to not do. I would say, don't be handed.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Don't be handed in your head.
One of the things that I've noticed about you through your career is you've always changed your setup.
Always.
Not only drum kits, but like you're using this, and you've always you were the first guy that I ever saw invert the splash over the crash.
I got that from Peter Criss, actually.
Well, there you go. Nice.
I break them when I do.
You're gonna
that.
owe them a
I
couple
gotta
bucks
go
for that.
I go light.
I just break them. I don't care.
Yeah, I break them all.
Yeah.
I got a stack of them, so over there on the floor.
But you know what? If you had to pick a favorite configuration, like is it a simple? Is it more elaborate? Like what's your?
Well, the problem is, all right. Let's look at it from a drum solo point of view.
Okay.
That would be the easiest way to answer the question.
But that's not your bread and butter, though. Your bread and butter is going to be.
Well,
the
that's
gig.
what the bread and butter dictates the way the drums I use.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like when I was playing with Mike LeCompte, his favorite set that I would play would be no toms. There was a few months there where I played a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, and one cymbal. And he was like, use that all the time. And I was like, oh, all right. So I ended up using a kick, a snare, hi-hat, and one cymbal for a few months, like in the late 90s or something. And it really gets you thinking. Like I had a double pedal. So, it really, you're like in a box at that point. You're like, all right, I got to do my thing without my thing, So that's the extreme one way. And then the other way is like, there's guys calling me now because I play with guys like Michael Bernier and Percy Jones and all these people I played with over the past 10 years. I'm this progressive rock guy now. That's how I'm perceived by a lot of people on the internet anyway. So they want to hear toms. They want to hear the concert toms. They want to hear hear you go around the drums. They want to hear odd times. They want to hear all this. So I could, but I wouldn't play some 12-minute song somebody sends me with all these changes on 4 drums. I have and I could, but I would set up a lot more drums. Maybe probably to answer your question easily, 2 mounted, 2 floors, 1 kick.
But if we weren't, so if we weren't talking a gig, if you were like, hey, if I could only have one setup, what would it be?
Probably 2 mounted, 2 floors. But the amount of toms would be backwards. So.
Why? Why do you do that? I always
I hate. Well, all right.
Because Chad does that too, and I don't.
Yeah, it's always been a Kenny Aronoff thing for me. I know he wasn't the guy that did it, but Kenny always did that.
Kenny
Aronoff was always.
Kenny does that. Yeah. Well, the thing with me is, no matter how many drums are in front of me, my go-to fills are always the 3 drums: snare, tom, floor. That's it's just habit, whatever you want to call it. Go-to's gonna be that. So keep that in mind. So now I got 1,000,000 toms in front of me, and 75% of the fills are just gonna be snare, tom.
Yeah.
I don't like the way a 10-inch tom sounds.
I totally
in that
agree
mix. It just, to my ear, it's like, and I know guys do it, especially the 90s. There was all that Pearl Jam stuff and Soundgarden. There was 10-inch tom in our face.
I'm agreeing with you on that. I'd
all
rather have a 12 if I had to die by
right,
one.
and I would put the 10 here.
Right.
So, and that changes your whole phrasing. It puts you in another head. I like putting myself in another head. And cymbals always change, constantly. I have 13-inch hats now. I just started using them recently, and so it's always changing.
I approach with the same type of philosophy. If you're talking core drums, the 12's always got to be
or 13, whatever.
It's got to have a little more meat to it.
The 10's just odd there.
But I go the other way. So I always like my ride cymbal in that. I like my ride. I never like my ride over here to make room for that tom or high. I always felt comfortable with it right there. So I always have to go this way. If I want the 10, I have to go here. And I totally get it, man. It's that. Let's talk a little bit about. You dabble into so many deep things with the electronics and the synthesizers and stuff with the Moogs and all that. Mm-hmm. What got you involved in all that stuff?
Well, the progressive rock thing. It's funny. I just brought that up. Early on, again, 13, 14 years old, which is usually when people start, I had already been playing. And at that point, I was kind of bored with the Eagles and ELO, as far as playing. I was like, I didn't really want to play that anymore. I'm in my basement or bedroom or whatever at this point. So I started listening to Yes. And that was when it started to get into that world where it's like, well, why can't I play that? What's that guy doing? And there was no YouTube. There was no email. You got to find somebody to answer these questions.
Wasn't that like Bruford with Simmons drums? And
not yet. That was well, I was listening to the 70s stuff. This is the 80s. That's probably what he was doing at that point. But I was listening to like Fragile by Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer's first couple albums, and at that point would have been Rush, and then but there's the one song that stopped me because it seemed easy was Long Distance Runaround. The Yes song, Long Distance Runaround. That's in 5, and any one of us could sit here and I'll put on any song, never heard it before in your life. You're gonna tap along with that snare, right? Well, that song goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Long distance. It's like, and I would sit there and I go, what? Wait,
yeah, right.
What? And I'm like, so that was the first song I remember being like, it seemed simple, but I couldn't play along.
Yeah.
And that's when I got it. That's when I got that first teacher. Actually, that song made me go find a drum teacher. And once he did what he did with the reading and stuff, I was like, look, man, what's going on with this song? And he went, oh, it's in 5. And I went, what the hell does that mean? So he's like, just count to 5. And I was like, it was like a light went on. Like the sun came up. Oh. I was like, wow, I could count past 4. Oh my God!
There's one more.
Why didn't I think of this?
Yeah.
So there was that, and so that's round like all that Yes stuff, like Close to the Edge, all that was really synth heavy.
Okay.
Really synth heavy, and I just was like, what is that? And again, back in those days, I didn't have any money. My parents didn't really have any money, or they weren't going to spend it on a synth. So I borrowed stuff. I was playing in a band with a guy. Can I borrow your synth? Can I borrow that Moog for a week or something if you're going away or something? And that was the first Moog I had was the guy's name was Tony Davis, who actually was the first keyboard player in Kristen and the Noise. I don't know if you know Tony.
Yeah, I do a little bit.
I think I do.
I grew up with him. He grew up a couple blocks away. And one summer, he was like, he had all these digital keyboards by that time. And he was like, yeah, man, just take my Moog. I had it for like 3 months. And just that did it. Sucked me in, you know. And then then later I figured out you could play drum pads and trigger it. So that's a whole other world, which I was doing that, and Anthony knows I was doing that before anybody.
Yeah.
You are. Because when you replaced me in La Comp, I didn't know. It's when I first met you, going back in 90, and you had the sneakers, sonar, drum kit, and I remember coming out, and I was like, you had like
4
double
Simmons
bass
pads.
drum. I think it was like 2 racks. You had like electronics here, electronics up here, and I was like, what's this guy doing? Like, because I never got into it. I never got into electronics.
Nobody
ever.
did.
And I still,
Nobody did.
to this, I bought the TD30s a couple years ago, and they just pretty much sat. I wound up selling them. But I know that you went to a whole nother level with it. But I remember seeing you back then, and yeah, you were doing it before anybody that I know.
Yeah, I was.
In the club.
It was
You're
really
still doing it before anybody.
It was really
Yeah,
no.
but
Well,
you
now,
keep doing it
now, I mean, I give credit where it's due. Now the electronic drum market has become
Yeah.
a low volume thing. If you can't play loud drums, and that's a big deal. There's a lot of people that can't play drums because they're too loud. There's a lot of kids when I was growing up didn't play drums, too loud, can't have them. Well, now you put a pair of headphones in, you bang on those pads. They're not very loud. They sound pretty good. They respond pretty good now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guys into it, but it's become this other thing. I was into it because I was like, oh my God, you mean I could hit this thing and it's a car crash? You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, you know what I mean? It isn't a cymbal or a drum or the train. I had train samples back then. Hell,
Yeah, you did.
I had all kinds of shit happening. And it was like, so to me, it was like, well, now if I go da 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 da, you know, it's of course it's cool on a tom, it's cool on a snare, but now it's a train. Like, how cool is that? You know what I mean? Like in the middle of a solo or in a weird part of a song, or you know. And then at that time, that's when a lot of samples were starting to come out.
Yeah.
Like I remember Aerosmith had that. What was that song? "Living on the Edge." Yeah, it's like
Middle
it sounds
part,
like
yeah.
thunder or
Bass
something,
drum,
you know.
yeah.
And it's like, so I was like, I want to hear, you know, I want that. Why did I get that? You know.
Yeah.
So
But you were doing a lot with that stuff in waveforms. Like, it's not even like sound. It's more like waves and
It
stuff.
is,
It's-
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean,
Yes.
I know. I mean,
But
I've
it's
seen a
all
couple
We're
of
doing
them.
that now.
yeah, he's talking about now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all rhythmic.
Yeah.
If you check that out, if you dive into that a little bit, a lot of guys sound like DJs. It sounds like techno stuff and all that. And that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But that's like, so my stuff's it almost sounds like I'm playing drums to me. They just don't sound like, you know, drums. But,
Yeah.
you know, and again, you talk about influence. You know, I was 40 a while ago. I was 40, 41 years old. You think it's over at that point. You know, you're not going to, an album's not going to hit you to knock you on your feet or anything. You know, I mean, I had those years. It was good. Somebody lent me this album or emailed. Now they downloaded it. You know, he sent me a download. It was called People the Sky by some guy's name I can't pronounce. It's all synths. And the way the synth sounded, it's like from 69 or something like this. I started playing different. I got behind the kit and I was like, you know, like I was breaking shit up. I wouldn't go, and this is just recently, you know. So, you know, anything's an influence. Like anything can influence your
Yeah.
playing. You know what I mean?
And it could be a good, like you were saying before, a good or a bad. Like if it's a bad one, then you might avoid that.
Right.
But you could use everything
Right.
to improve your style in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Paul Pirylis, which is one of the things I wanted to bring up, said, you know, Ritchie DeCarlo loves trains, which I knew, but I wanted to say, which is a question.
that doesn't influence the drumming at all.
No. A question that I wanted to say was, like, outside of everybody knows you, everybody knows Ritchie DeCarlo with drumming, Ritchie DeCarlo, you know, percussion, this, that, the studio. What don't they know about Ritchie DeCarlo? When you're not here in your studio, you're not drumming. What other hobbies? What are you doing? Like, what are you
Not
doing?
much. I mean, to be honest,
We know you hate sports.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
know,
So, and I don't
so-
drink, so there's not that let's go have a beer thing with me. And before it turns into some, you know, I frown upon drinking. It's not that. I don't. You can drink all you want. You can drink around me. I don't care. But it's like I don't drink. So there was never that. I never really drank. So there was never that. Let's go have a beer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that turns into let's have a beer and watch the game. It's like I was like, well, I'm not. You guys go have the beer. I'm going to go write another song. You know what I mean? It was like bands. You know, bands always
When
do
you're
stuff
home,
like
you're
that.
just chilling, watching some TV.
Oh,
or
all the synths
whatever.
are set up in the laundry room at home, dude. It's like,
is that
yeah,
what that is?
oh yeah, man, that's my laundry room. Yeah, that's like, you know, yeah. I mean, it's nonstop. It's always going.
I mean, I
it's
checked
always
it out
going.
a couple times, but I get lost with it. I'm like, all right, you know, I see you in there, and I'm like, okay. You know, just looks like the Terminator.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, I don't know what he's doing, what he's turning. Or
Nothing's in tune.
Here's a
cool.
question from somebody. Vaughn wants to know, what approach do you take when you're learning a song? Do you have a certain way that you would tackle a song that you're learning?
I'm going to show my age here now. Years ago, I would listen to a song. Now, if we're talking about, let's talk about the Stone Temple Pilots era where we were all doing that stuff. I would listen to those songs twice through if I never heard it. You could give me any one of those songs. Back then, I'd listen to it twice and then either go to rehearsal or go to a gig and I'd play it. And it was like that for years. It doesn't happen like that anymore for me. I listen to stuff and I listen and sometimes I feel like I'm not listening. I don't know what it is. Like if I sit to learn a song, a lot of times halfway through the song, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I'm not even listening now. I'm like somewhere else or whatever. So now I write it out. I'll sit down and I'll write the basic beat of the song out. If there's a signature fill, I'll write that fill out. And then I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, that's the verse beat, that's the chorus beat, and he does that fill 3 times. Then I know the song. Then I can listen to it twice. I'm seeing those beats in my head. I'm literally seeing them written out. And then, so that's the answer there. I write them out now. The past 10, 12 years,
makes sense.
I've been having to write stuff out.
I couldn't do it that
With
way.
that Emerson, Lake and Palmer band that I was in for the past year, I had to write everything out.
Oh,
God bless you.
That was like, because I was like, there's no way I'm memorizing any of this.
that's
Thank God for the iPad.
It's a lot of notes.
It was a lot of, do I still have them here? They were out here the other day. Nah, I don't know. Speaking of writing, though, shameless plug, buy my book. It's a snare drum book. I wrote it about 10 years ago. It's on Amazon. Just look up my name. It'll come up.
You see that?
Buy my book. You can have that one. It's all right-handed, though. No, I'm just kidding. There's no, I specifically don't. I specifically didn't put sticking for that reason. Play it any way you want.
Pages are even.
But anyway, sorry, I was interrupting a question. What do you got?
No. You're good. That you can get that on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And let me get one thing in too before keep that question right there.
I'm good.
When we were trying to go live, we had a little problem with the posting feed of information. So I just want to let you guys know that you could check out Bucks County Drums at buckscountydrumco.com. So, and we're gonna end up putting that into our feed when we're done here, so you can just come back and check it. And if you got any questions about that and you want to be pointed in the right direction, we can put you in direct contact with Chris and with Bucks County. So you can PM any one of us, and we'll get you there. Also, if you guys notice that we have this little thing up here, we are taking some donations and tips, whatever, just trying to cover some expenses that we have with the show. If you feel led and you can, it's not necessary, but if you can, just make the donations, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, what'd you have there?
No, I was just going to ask Richie, so obviously I know you do a lot of session work for a lot of people, and
Especially lately, yeah.
Yeah, and you're doing. But do you put aside time, and do you say, you set some goals for yourself? I'm going to practice this, or you find something that you had heard, like you're saying, and say, oh, I want to figure this out, or is it just now work? I got to do sessions. I got to play gigs. Are you sitting down? Are you exercising on a kit on a regular basis at all for yourself?
Well, putting drums aside, I put out an album of my own every year. I put out a CD every year for 11 years now. So there's 11 albums with different people from all over the world. That's one great thing about the whole internet and everything. I mean, I just about anybody I approach. Like I saw Carl Palmer back in October, November. He played at what's that place? Arena 2300 or something down in Philly.
Oh,
They
yeah,
have
the
that big place.
Ardmore Music Hall. Was that what
No. It's
okay,
in South Philly.
Oh, yeah.
It's big.
69th Street you're talking about.
It's on
Oh,
Front
no, not
Street.
69th
Front
Street.
Street. It's
Yeah,
on
I know what you're talking
Arena
about.
2300 or something. Anyway, I saw Carl Palmer there, and it was really loose. Like, they'd play a few songs, and then they'd all come out.
Wrestling
talk.
place.
What's that?
It's a wrestling place. But
It used to be a wrestling place.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
yes.
still have a wrestling place.
Oh, they
I
do?
just played there recently, but go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Okay, I didn't even know that. Well, he was there, and it was almost like a camp. Like, he'd play a few songs, and then he'd come out and talk to all these people, and they'd ask him questions, and then they'd play a few more songs. And then I talked to the bass player, and he's going to play on my new record. You know what I mean? Where if I had to fly him in or something, it would never happen. Yeah. But, I sent him a song. He does it at home, sends me the track. So I end up doing all that stuff. So that's what I do on my spare time. It's more music. I do my own music, I don't have to worry about if anybody wants to dance to it or whatever, it's my own thing. And then my thing once I spent the 5 years or whatever it was at home and practiced it, at Jay Bruno telling me I sucked, and that once that whole thing was done, I knew. You know how people say, "Oh, you got to get something to fall back on. You got to be an accountant in case the drum team don't go." They always tell you, "Go to school, get something to fall back on." Well, I knew if I had something to fall back on that made a chunk of change, I wouldn't be playing drums much at all. I would have lost it. That's just me. I just know me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agree with
if
you.
there's not a reason of some kind at that point in my life, I'm saying I've already been playing 6-7 years or whatever, and I'm 17, 18. I'm driving. I was playing with Reggie Wu at that time, actually.
Right.
From Heaven's Edge. And so at that time, I just knew I had to play with people. I was like, because they're going to make me play. They're going to make me better. They're going to make me do different things. Reggie was the guy that got me playing double bass. I joined his band. I had a single bass drum. I was in the Iron Maiden then. The original guy had a single bass drum.
Nico.
Well, the guy before him, Clive.
Oh, Clive Burke.
Yeah, Clive Burke. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nico was great too.
And
Still
you were the
sends
same
me-
way. This was years before this, but you were the same way. I'm not playing double bass. I'm a single bass guy.
No.
Right. So I started playing with Reggie Wu. And, he had a big name even then. I was like 17, so he was like 24 or something. Locally, he had a pretty big name. So I wanted to play with him, And he was like, "You got to get 2 bass drums." And I was like, "I do?" And he's like, "Dude." So he turned me on to Cozy Pal with Rainbow. I didn't really know that stuff. Speaking of influence, Tommy Aldridge is one of my all-time biggest influences ever. Ever.
Still has it.
Oh my
Just
God!
saw
I
him.
know, it's ridiculous.
I just saw him.
Crazy.
I don't even know how.
Yeah, incredible.
Well, I think he swims. I think that's his secret.
145 pounds soaking wet or whatever
And
it
he
is.
swims.
Swinging them arms, he's all
Yeah, amazing player.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a whole other thing. Reggie brought me into that. I didn't know, I knew Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath with Dio and a couple metal things, but then he was like, "You gotta listen to this, you gotta listen to that." And then when I was playing with him, our singer quit, and Buddy Cash had a band that Jimmy Durnick just quit. So I started playing with them. So it all just it was like dominoes. It all just fell in. But my whole thing at that time was, I gotta just play. And now, that's how it still is. You see me post, I'm available to do sessions. I'm available for this gig. I'm available for that gig. We all do that to a degree. But for me, it's almost like survival. Like if nothing went on for 2 months at all, I don't know. I mean, I may not play for 2 months. It's never happened. Luckily, it's never happened. I've always had something, a gig, a session.
I don't think any of us have ever been in that position. I mean,
Right.
and I feel like maybe me on the lesser side of both of you. I know he can't I can put the drums away for a couple of days, especially if I'm playing normal gigs on a regular basis. I'll take Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, and not do anything. But this has caused me to bring out a kit, get it reset up in the basement. Now it's there and it doesn't ever have to leave. And I'm like, man, I've been enjoying
it's
really
awesome.
digging back in and.
I
going
love
over
having
stuff.
this set up. Now, do you have drums at your house?
No, I live in an apartment.
Oh, okay.
There's no drumming going on at all.
So it's primarily here.
Plastic pads sound too loud. And that's not a joke.
Okay.
The people upstairs will complain about a practice pad.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, that's fine. That's okay. That's not going to happen here. All right. But that's why I'm here. I'm here. Like I told you, I'm here at least 3 days a week.
Robert Iazzi is asking. He knew, or he's saying that he always knew that you were a cat man.
Yeah, and that would be. And Robert would
It's
have
out
to
now.
say that.
The
yeah.
cat's out of the bag.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we got to give a shout out to Paul Beccari again, and my brother Fred. They're having a field day on my feed here. Brotherly love and friends having a good time. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself.
Oh wait, there's a question on my just popped up. What about the drummer on Diary of a Madman? Yes, that's Lee Kerslake, who was in Uriah Heep. Great drummer. He's on the first 2 Ozzy records. Yes, love him. Yes.
Many great
Yes,
drummers.
those first 2 Ozzy albums were probably a big influence. I listened to him my whole life after that.
So Chris was chiming in here. Chris Carr from Bucks County was saying that all the Prime series have a round over on a 45. So that's the edge that you're looking at is 45 with a round over at the top. So you're going to get a little bit more meat out of that where the head's sitting. He also said that the Prime series is where they focus on one species of drum. So he has other series that will maybe mix match, but and I'm assuming that maybe this is a Prime series.
Yes,
then.
it's all
So,
Birch. Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Chris, for chiming in, and thanks for such a great sounding instrument. We appreciate
Which I want to play again.
Yeah.
Get up there, Richie.
All
Well,
right.
we're, hold on before we do that because we're going to close out with him playing. But why don't we do the this or that thing and then we'll close out with him.
Yeah, these are
playing.
just quickies, quick questions.
Uh-oh.
Hole in the front head or no hole in the front head?
Ooh.
Hole in the front head.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Now, this is a good one. Led Zeppelin or The Who? You got one album to pick. Not one album, but one band to pick.
The Who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which, I just want to say
My
real
favorite
quick, when we were talking about growing up as kids, we do know that there were a lot of things we couldn't play, but we all sat down and wanted to be Keith Moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
'Cause I know I was down there, it was easy to just have a lot of drums that hit them all,
Right.
But,
That's
that
the
wasn't-
thing is Keith Moon lent into that though because you
Yeah.
could be a little messy.
Well, I destroyed
right?
a lot of drum sets. I'm sure you've seen along the way. I've definitely threw drums at people.
pouring
and
water on them.
Water. I've damaged a lot of stuff.
So Lamborghini or the Prius? I mean, you talk about this Prius.
Oh wow. Well, you can't fit drums in a Lamborghini.
Okay, it's the Prius. Bacon or turkey bacon? Because we know you're a health freak.
Real bacon
See
on
that?
my ice cream, please.
Now, if you had to pick one sport that you had to pick, there's got to be something that football, basketball, baseball, soccer,
Hockey.
hockey.
If I got it, I mean, again.
So you do watch.
No. But you're saying we're at a sports bar and every game is on every
It's
TV
hockey. Okay.
and it would be hockey, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Go ahead, Bob. You can take a couple. Go
I've
ahead.
been to
You wanna
baseball
do
games.
mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So here's one: Yoko or Benatar.
That was good. That was good. Jesus, gosh.
Think now. Think.
Again.
We forgot about the Yoko
Is
thing.
that what you
I
said?
forgot. Yeah, that was good that you did that.
So you got to look at his. Is that on Facebook as well?
It's somewhere on there. I didn't delete it.
It's
yeah.
so funny.
It was
He
up
does
to,
this
I don't know,
Yoko
500
thing. It's
comments
hilarious.
or something.
That was great.
I was gonna say Moog or Roland.
Oh, Moog.
I threw Simmons in there too, but yeah, I figured if it'd still be Moog.
It just would. And he made drums. Nobody knows that. They're very expensive now. But he made a drum kit.
Huh.
There's a Moog drum kit out there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they're
I just ordered a ton of brake stuff that was Moog, if that means anything.
Right,
They're
I
not
know.
the same guy, but
they're related though.
are they
From
really?
what I understand, they
No
are
way.
related. Yes.
Well, those are very good suspension pieces.
Yes, they are.
They'll be in my car. What else you got there?
No, I just, we were talking about the health thing. I know Richie likes all the junk food because people were asking me, why don't you ask him what he likes? Does he like to drink soda or water? And it's like, I think we know. I mean, we saw the shopping list. Or the
Yeah,
shopping
man.
cart
You
that
saw the
day.
cart.
I was like, oh, man.
You saw the
I
cart.
felt bad because I'm like, he's going to get ripped on for that.
Yes. Yes.
It's all good. We all do it.
But there's no such thing as bad attention. You get attention.
Yeah.
If I posted a bunch of health food, nobody even say anything.
That is true. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Actually, Tim, what's his last name? Tim, the guy that takes the pictures.
Tim Price.
Yeah, he messaged me the other day. He said, "Do you really eat the stuff you post the pictures of?"
Yes.
I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing left.
Parquet or butter?
Butter.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one, man. I've tried all the other stuff. I mean, you got to get
Doesn't
right back
work.
to
I
butter.
like parquet. I gotta be honest with you. I like
I can't believe it's not butter.
miracle spread or whatever that stuff
I
is.
use it, but it's got to be butter. Let's see any more questions before we get you on.
Well, he
there.
has a thing here. I think that's a pretty good question.
Oh yeah. So I mean, like, if you had to pick between a cover band that you really like or a tribute band, which one would you prefer to play in?
The cover band, because I have found that if I play one person's catalog for very long, I can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in that Heart
You've
tribute
done
band.
a couple. Yeah, I was in
that Heart tribute band for 2 years, and I love Heart, and yes, and I would do it again, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. Those are great guys, great girls, great players, everything. It was a really good band. But after like a year and a half, I was like, oh, yeah. We're not going to play another song ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's these 30 songs or
point.
whatever. And so based on that,
You could really get stale as a player too.
yeah, you're not.
If you're just not practicing or
Right.
playing anything else. If
Well,
you're-
and for me, just to talk about the tribute band thing for a minute, because it's such a big thing, or was such a big thing. I don't know where that's going to go. But for me, I want to hear the guys play what the guys played, or as close as they can do it. You know, somebody's like a drummer friend of mine said, "Well, don't. Oh, you're getting sick of that Heart song. We'll play it different." I'm like, "No.
Yeah,
These
right.
people are paying money to hear that Heart song. Who knows? It could have been their wedding song or something. I'm going to start doing different fills and those signature ballads.
Right, yeah.
No, I'm not going to
can't.
do
There's
that.
a
You know.
time, that's just
So
not
you
it.
know, and the only one that I think could stay interesting, and this is going to sound weird because nobody thinks of him as much of a drummer, is the Rolling Stones, because there's so much material.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's not just 2 and 4, and you know, the early stuff. There's some really, it's not tricky, but it's actually interesting. So I think that would be probably the only tribute band that would stay interesting. But if it's between a cover band or a tribute band, I'd have to say a cover band because
I think the catalog is definitely key, like Led Zeppelin and a couple of those bands that have they have 50 to 60 songs that could be, they don't all have to be hits, but you got three-quarter hits, and then you mix in those other, and then you got 5 to 10 hits that get played every show, but then all the other stuff is mixed up. You got them, Heart is like on the line. It's like if you're doing like a full hour and a half show, it's like
you're doing the same songs.
you're playing that Animals record for sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Bad Animals. Yeah.
Bad Animals, right?
Well, Rich, man, thanks for being on, and we appreciate
Thanks for having
you.
me, man. It's
We
great.
love you, man. It's was a pleasure. Like to get you back onto the Bucks County drum set and just take the show out.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before we do that, though, I want to hear you play. So
But there's
when you're
more.
getting set up, I'm gonna say, hey, give a shout out to Bucks County. Thank you guys for being our first sponsor of our show.
Yeah, appreciate that.
We'll be back next week on Thursday, and we got a great guest lined up. You want to tell them who we got lined up, brother?
This is good.
We're excited about this one too.
Really
man.
excited. Not that we're not excited about any guests because we love everybody, but we have Preston from WMMR coming on our show next week.
Preston Elliott, yeah.
It's really good, and a
good
lot
to
of
be a
people
lot of
don't know that Preston is a really
really
good drummer. He sent me some videos. I sent them to you, and
I've seen him play. He's played my kit.
yeah.
Yeah, numerous times.
I mean, I was blown away. But yeah, we have Preston from the Preston and Steve show, WMMR, next week.
So next Thursday, 7 p.m. Want to thank Ritchie so much, man, for being our guest this week, and we're gonna let him take us out, man. You guys take care. See ya.
It ended up not raining.
Yes, it was a beautiful day.